Hello everyone, and welcome back to what will be the final episode of the Stormblood Dungeon Lore series. As usual in these videos, I'll do my best to explain the lore behind each dungeon of Final Fantasy XIV and go over some things about them that you might not know. Today's dungeon is the Ghimlyt Dark. For years, the Garlean Empire has made it their duty to conquer and invade other nations with the goal of eventually having the world unified under one flag and leader. Although they have been vastly successful with highly aggressive tactics, especially in places such as Dalmasca and Nagsha, this was highly thanks to their vast fleet of airships storming across the land. Over in Girabania, however, although the airships could still be of great use, the Garleans had need to send ground troops to invade Alamigo after Theodoric's fall. To do this, they would have to make their way south from Ilsabard through the only known connecting region, the Ghimlyt Dark. The area is known for a mixture of its harsh rocky terrain as well as specific ethereoclimactic conditions which keep heavy clouds over the landscape, keeping it in a perpetual darkness, hence the name. This has led it to be an uninhabited and barren area, with those few trade caravans and the plunderers of them the only regular visitors. When the Garleans moved to invade Alamigo before the Calamity, they sent their armies through the dark, easily overcoming the Alamigan vanguard thanks to the weakened condition of the city-state. Up until Alamigo was freed once more, the Dark stood as a pathway for imperial supply and a choke point for any wishing to pass between the territories. Now, however, with the rising tension between nations and the prospect for a second invasion from Garlemald, the Ghimlyt Dark seems to have been set for a staging ground for a battle to decide the fate of Old Nard, and perhaps even the world. After our excursion into the Burn, the Scions and the Warrior of Light make their way to the Azim Steppe to find an energy source for the Magitek field to be used for Doma's defense. After a requested fight with Sardu and an intervention from Magni, in which Y'shtola deals damage beyond the physical, we finally return to Alamigo to attend the Alliance meeting with the Scions and leaders of the Alliance. While discussion is going well, the topic turns to how best dismantle the Garlean hierarchy, and Thancred suggests that instead of outright assassination, the best course would be to lay rumours in the capital and provinces of Xenos' possession, and hope to sow enough unrest to unsteady the Empire. Soon after suggesting this, however, the Scions all at once hear a piercing cry and a loud voice not from in the room. The Warrior of Light in particular hears several sentences in a dark place, and as they come back, the Scions too appear confused. Thancred, however, does not stir, seeming to be in a great slumber. After being examined by Kane Senna herself, she determines that he, while in good health, appears to be lacking a soul. She tells the Scions they seem to have been called elsewhere, akin to a summoning. Although worried about Thancred, the rest of the Scions decide to move on with little time to spare, and Alizé soon receives a link pearl call from Urianger, who apparently also heard the voice even though he was in Thanalan at the time. In the Rising Stones we meet with him, and as well as the voices he notes the occasional lack of etheric density in particular areas, which seems to be becoming more frequent across the land. However, after deciding it would be best to examine Thancred's condition personally, Urianger stops dead as the voice rings out once more. Y'shtola and the rest hear it too, and again stagger with the pain of the voice. After steadying themselves, Alizé and the Warrior of Light find themselves without the other pair, both seeming to have dropped into the same condition as Thancred. After seeing them to the infirmary, Alizé pays a visit to Gabu in the Maelstrom headquarters, finding comfort in remembering the friends they still have standing beside them. Meanwhile, in the Palace of Garlemald, we see Varys and Xenos, the latter explaining the necessity for another attack on Alamigo, even bragging of the ability to destroy the Icon Slayer at a moment's notice. After insisting on more haste, the Ascian Xenos leaves, but another mysterious man appears from behind the throne. He begins talking down to Varys, reminding him of his place as an administrator of judgment and not a maker. After stating that the Empire's purpose is to keep the balance of light and dark, the man reveals himself to be Solus Zos Galvus himself, founder and first emperor of the Garlean Empire. However, not only is he apparently alive and well, he tells the Emperor of his origin, that the Empire was built by an Ascian all along. After expounding on his plans to cause another calamity, Varys shoots the Ascian, whose body falls down the steps and lies still. However, another Solus appears nearby, with the now dead one being merely a simulacrum. Solus reminds his grandson that even though Varys wishes to move for the future of Garlemald, their goals amount to one and the same. Meanwhile, in a Resistance encampment, Alphino and the Shadowhunter find their entire place dead, with unmarked but unmistakably deceased bodies all around. Shadowhunter explains the creation of an alchemical weapon known as Black Rose, a gas deadly to any unlucky enough to inhale it. Back in the Rising Stones, Krile arrives to speak with Alizé and the Warrior of Light about their friend's conditions, eventually deciding to visit Master Matoya to request use of her crystal eye, with the idea being to search for the ether of the Scions, similar to when we searched for Thancred. After meeting Master Matoya, she yields to helping us after seeing Alizé's downcast face, and produces the eye for Krile to examine. After some time, however, Krile is shocked to find their etheric signatures completely gone, unable to be traced at all. Alizé receives a call from Alamigo about a group of the Populares arriving, wishing to speak with the Alliance, and so she and the Warrior of Light return, leaving Krile and Matoya to carry on searching for a solution for their friends. We find that the group of Garleans awaiting us is being led by Maxima, whom Alizé immediately questions for her brother's whereabouts. He explains their situation after crash landing in the burn, and informs her that Alphino continued his investigation after they separated. He also tells us that the Empire seems to be mobilizing their armies en masse for a westward invasion, moving again to Alamigo. However, soon after Lee sends us to Doma to request Hien's assistance, the mysterious voice rings out once more, causing Alizé and the Warrior of Light to stagger again, although both eventually recover. After this we head to Doma and investigate the newly named Seiyu's Wall, the great magitek field shielding Doma from Garlean airships. While there in the burn, a small transport arrives bearing the Shadowhunter and, surprisingly, Alphino, unfortunately in the same state as our other slumbering allies. The man engages us in conversation, and after some time we finally recognise him as Gaius van Belsar, previous legatus of the 14th Imperial Legion. He explains that after his defeat at the Praetorium, he decided to drag himself free from the rubble, and dedicated himself to hunting Ascians. He then warns us of the three paragons of the Source, and although La Habrea was defeated long ago, Elidibus and Emet-Selch, the latter of which is shrouded in mystery, still remain. He then warns us too of Black Rose, but tells us that his compatriots destroyed the main stock of the weapon, meaning breathing room until the alchemists create more. He warns too of the many copies of Solus Nosgalvas found in a facility nearer the capital. Another scene in one of the Black Rose facilities shows us Varus with the head scientist, who informs the Emperor that the weapon can be up and running once more after the invasion begins. Solus mocks him again, but notes the usefulness of the weapon, and Varus lashes out about the damage his actions have done to the Empire, but Solus tells him it was by design, leaving the Emperor angry and confused. Back in Giribania, we arrive at the Alliance forward base to discuss potential plans for battle, and we are called to a meeting with Varus himself to parley before combat can break out. In the meeting room, the Emperor arrives with his two personal guards and takes his seat. The negotiations between the leaders and the Empire begin and soon drag on, with each allied leader suggesting a more peaceful way to end the conflict. Varus, however, gives a rebuttal to each on the side of uniting the world under his flag. After tensions rise, the group has a small break to chat about how to approach the next discussions, with the Warrior of Light suggesting they actually get to know more about Garlemald and the state of its peoples. In the second half of the discussion, they do just that and inquire about current affairs and the needs of the people. However, Varus seems more insistent than ever for his cause. He then begins spouting the same philosophy brought by the Ascians, that of causing a calamity in the world to rejoin the shards to their true state. Emmerich speaks up, reminding Varus of the trickery of the Dark Ones, but Varus reveals to them all of his ancestry and how the Empire itself was founded by one of their kind. He then beseeches them to join his cause in returning the world to its original state, but this is met by refusal by all parties, with the leaders and the Warrior of Light literally standing against the Empire. Nanamo, the speaker, refutes his claims, and after Varus asks the Warrior of Light of their view, we too agree with the Alliance. The Emperor then turns to leave, noting our next meeting will be on the field of battle. Back in the forward base, troops and leaders alike are moving about in the haste to prepare their supplies and weapons, and Hien informs Rauban of the Doman contingent arriving shortly. He then requests Alizé and the Warrior of Light to accompany them, hoping that the morale boost from our presence will raise their spirits. Rauban calls to all the soldiers in the base, declaring the hour of battle upon them, and they begin mobilizing to the front lines. Alizé has a final chat with the Warrior of Light, finding it odd that she remains without fear even in the face of battle. She resolves to fight twice as hard for their missing comrades, and asks the Warrior of Light not to leave her alone should the voice come again. We then prepare ourselves to finally face the Garleans head on, in the swirling clouds of the dark battlefield. We arrive in the thick of the front lines within the Ghimlyt Dark, amongst the smoke, fire and shadows of the Garlean air fleet roaming the skies. We begin heading down through the trenches to engage the ground troops in combat, and it doesn't need saying that the enemies here are all of the Garlean vanguard. We slowly make our way further downhill, dealing with the several smaller contingents of troops until we eventually enter a skirmish with the Magitech gunship, blocking our path along with its own set of soldiers. After destroying it, the nearby debris blocking the passageway is blasted aside by a rogue explosion, allowing the party through to the next trench to the Field of Dust, where a specially commissioned Magitech Colossus awaits. Clad in gold, the machine makes great use of not only its sword, but the heat produced by its armour as well. The Colossus opens by heavily cleaving the tanking party member and following up with a heat blast from its armour, striking the group all at once. After this, the Colossus leaps to the centre of the room and begins preparing a red-hot Magitech slash. As it swipes, it leaves a pool of fire in its wake, burning up the ground and forcing the party to wait to evade the spinning slashes until the ground goes out. Following up with a Colossus standard exhaust and cerulean vent to damage the group, it prepares a second Magitech slash that spins in the opposite direction, again forcing the party to follow close behind and watch the burning ground. After enduring a burning Magitech ray and evading more of its slashes, the Colossus crumbles and the group can proceed through to the next part of the battlefield. We see a huge mass of debris on either side along with the telltale blue liquid, cerulean fuel from the huge crashed airship we walk in the wake of. As we proceed, the debris explodes and splinters from its hull and tumbles onto the pathway, and soldiers charge down the hill towards us amongst the wreckage. The further the group heads up the hill, the more the explosions occur and dangerously send the parts spiralling down on top of them. But eventually they reach the crest of the hill where the searchlights come into view, allowing us to drop down into the field of soot. We see the Alliance troops going toe-to-toe with the Garleans here, and run into our allies as we even the odds for them. Pippin and Lisa fighting a group of soldiers and Magitech machines both, with the former telling us of potential reinforcements inbound. As we get closer to the entranceway blocked by the burning flame, the new soldiers paratroop in and engage us, threatening to overwhelm the group with sheer numbers. However, our allies fight back well and we eventually tackle the large scorpion leading the group, and Pippin demands we move forward as we open the way to reach the impact crater, finding a unique Garlean machine awaiting us known as Prometheus. This drilling war machine begins its assault by using its nitro spin, coating the outside of the crater with flames, and following up with an oil spill from its pipes, blasting any on its flank with the burning fluid. After this, it retreats underground and uses its drills, burrowing quickly into the hard rock. After a time, the party hears rumbling and an ominous red glow appears on the crater walls, after which Prometheus bursts from it, unleashing a devastating blast of flame across the floor. When the machine emerges from the hole, it delivers a blow with its Cermet drill onto the tanking party member, attempting to mince them with a dangerous blow. The Prometheus attempts another oil spill and nitro spin, and eventually burrows once more after launching a freezing missile above. In an attempt to lure the group, the missiles land around the edge of the crater, forcing the group closer to the center to avoid the main blast. However, the machine itself still blasts out of the nearby wall, same as before, and so after avoiding the missiles, the group must quickly move aside to evade. After the Prometheus returns, we endure a round from its needle gun and continue to avoid the oil spray, eventually bringing it down. The party moves through to the Field of Ash, where we find an even larger battle ensuing, spotting Emmerich and Kane Senna tackling some Magitech machines in the midst of it all. Assisting them, we carry on along the path and find another Colossus there. Defeating it, a Hexadrone bursts through the nearby wreckage and attacks the group. After avoiding its spinning blades, we follow Emmerich and the Elder Seed down to the next section, where we regroup with Lise and Pippin, both returning to help tackle the last wave of troops to break through the ranks. At the end of the pathway, a Colossus faces the group, and after felling it, a second one takes its place, the Colossus Rubicatus. As a much more deadly model, it prepares a blast from its Cermet blade, forcing Kane Senna to produce a magical shield to deflect the worst of the blow from our allies. After avoiding its sword swipes, the Rubicatus begins to become damaged and desperate, preparing itself for imminent self-destruction in an attempt to take us down with it. Lise, however, readies herself, unleashing a full blast of her power, completely destroying the Colossus. Our allies once again urge us forward as they return to the fray, allowing the Warrior of Light to finally reach the provisional Imperial landing, where 2 of the Emperor's closest guard awaits us. As we approach the landing point, a Magitech transport flies overhead and drops off the 2 guards we saw alongside Varys at the meeting table. Impressed by our skill despite being savages, they each draw their respective weapons and attempt to hold the line. Anya and Julia Kosaranis, twins of the Empire who served Varys since before he was Emperor, stand before the group preparing for a final clash with their deadly synergy. As we engage, Julia immediately retreats to the edge of the arena as Anya engages us directly. Julia immediately prepares several Magitech swipes with her blade, as Anya prepares to call the order to blast the arena with gunship fire. The blasts from Julia knock the group back and it can easily push them into Anya's attack if not careful. After the explosion, Julia swiftly leaps around the platform, readying more slashes as Anya unleashes a burst of plasma. She then follows up with a deadly Delta Trance combo on the tanking party member, swiping and kicking at them with great force. Julia meanwhile repeatedly unleashes shots from her gunblade at the party at random, slowly whittling them down while they avoid Anya's sweep. When injured, the pair unleash another bombardment combination, after which they jump and re-emerge in the centre of the platform. Unleashing their great speed, Julia prepares a single swipe which Anya deflects, and the pair dash about as they kick and slice at the moving energy, knocking it all around at the party and making it extremely difficult to evade. After managing to do so, however, the pair return to the centre where Anya swaps with Julia, allowing us to engage her instead. As Julia unleashes deadly swings at the tanking party member, Anya prepares a great barrage of cerulean tanks to land upon the arena, dispersing them about as they emerge. Julia blasts one with her gunblade, triggering it to explode. As it does so, it connects with the other explosives which causes a chain reaction, blasting the entire arena in sequence as the party tries to evade. After avoiding another order to fire, dodging the dropped explosives and the swipes from Julia, the pair re-emerge in the centre and again unleash their deadly combo attack. The pair seem in disbelief at our ability to evade, and after this they give themselves an artificial boost, preparing a final and deadly burst of plasma for the party. We eventually manage to stop their assault, where Anya believes their purpose served, and throws a blinding flash bomb to allow the pair to retreat, giving the Alliance a victory for the day. After this, our comrades begin to celebrate the day's achievements, and Alizé suggests that instead of retreating, we should give chase to the fleeing Garleans and finish them off. Just as she ponders the look on the others' faces when they find the war already won, however, the mysterious voice from afar calls out to her and the Warrior of Light both once more. Although again she tries to resist the call, this time Alizé is the one to fall victim to the voice, and she collapses on the battlefield, her soul whisked away to who knows where. Back at headquarters, Rauban informs us that the Alliance line remained unbroken, and Ygiri arrives to tell us that Alizé is indeed in the same condition as the other Scions, asleep but unable to be woken. Hien heads off to greet the arriving Doman troops, and the Warrior of Light returns to the Rising Stones to regroup. And Hori Balder fills us in on the situation, with the Scions still in their comatose states, while Kryl, Matoya and Kultane search for any avenue of recovering them. The Warrior of Light's troubles in the Ghimlyt Dark are nowhere near finished, however, as we see a certain man in familiar armour arriving upon the battlefield. Sometime afterwards, Maximo arrives in the Rising Stones, hoping to become friends with the Alliance to help his homeland in the long run. After checking on Alphino, he tells us to visit Silvertear Lake to see an old friend, who turns out to be Cid. After he and Maximo discuss the goings-on within the capital, particularly the apparent knowledge that the Empire was founded by Ascians, as well as the whereabouts and motives of Gaius, we are requested at headquarters once more and meet Rauban there. He begins discussing the current situation on the front lines, inferring that the lines remain stable and that Garlemald has yet to make a major push, when a soldier rushes in to inform him of the sightings of Lord Xenos in the fray. Although Hien and Lys still fight on, Rauban fears they may not hold out without further support, and so the Warrior of Light leaves for the Dark once more to face the Ascian Xenos. Meanwhile, amidst the wreckage of the battlefield, Hien, Ygiri and Lys, as well as a handful of soldiers, fight their hardest with the Prince, managing to overcome his ever more ferocious attacks by going all out against him. They hold their own well enough to allow time for the Warrior of Light to arrive in their midst. In a last-ditch attempt, our comrades manage to land a blow to Xenos' face, breaking a part of his mask, but with a blast of energy they are pushed back, and the Warrior of Light arrives to find them on the ground, unable to fight any longer. We then engage him in yet another one-to-one duel, putting our mettle to the test against the possessed Crown Prince. One key difference in this battle, however, is Xenos' ability to now unleash magic on top of his expert swordsmanship, using triple to unleash blasts of dark energy around the arena, while still having to avoid his deadly swipes. After tackling the energy gathering blades in a similar fashion to our fight in Alamigo, we managed to knock the prince to the ground. He soon raises up again, however, and comments on our mother's well-placed choice of champion. As we prepare to continue fighting while Xenos walks towards us, however, the cry of the voice from beyond reaches us stronger than ever, forcing us to our knees. Looking up at the prince, his visage fades in and out of focus as he raises his blade, swiping as we lose consciousness. When we awake, however, we find ourselves not on the battlefield, but in a strange circular room with a hooded figure. Although what he says makes little sense, he explains that he needs our help to change an event that cannot be allowed to pass. He tells us to visit the Crystal Tower and look for an object left for us there, informing us as he slowly moves further away that doing so will finally open the path to the First. And that's the end of the story and lore of the Ghimlyt Dark, as well as the end of the Dungeon lore series for Stormblood. After many of our allies fall to an unknown cause, a final confrontation with the forces of the Empire come forth, beginning well with the Alliance holding their ground, but at a hefty price of our last comrade's soul. The Warrior of Light, meanwhile, remains confused and injured by Xenos, finding themselves in the infirmary of Ishgard. After meeting the form of the mysterious voice face to face, the questions continue to pile up as we await for our allies to inform us of the so-called object left at the Crystal Tower, and how its power might lead us, not just to another location, but another star entirely. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more Final Fantasy XIV. As always, thank you so much for your support on the videos, and I look forward to seeing you all as we throw wide the gates to the Shadowbringers Dungeon Lore series.